One.
Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over ours. Oh, and a chief shenanigator. I forgot she's over there knitting quietly, and I just forgot her yarn needles were crocheting stuff, and she's going to
You realize I can just well, it'd be Stabby's job, but I think that she would give me permission to stab you with a crochet hook for forgetting me. I am unforgettable. All right, do that again. Start with the just a couple of grunts thing, and then start going again.
A Stabby chaos coordinator and one chief shenanigator with her Stabby stab needles, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Daniel Schwabauer. I should have asked you how to pronounce that in the pre-show. Daniel, can you tell us how to say your last name and then introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers at home?
Yeah. My last name is Schwabauer. So I'm Daniel Schwabauer. I'm a writer, write science fiction, fantasy, and I guess weirdly enough on Blasters and Blades theology, and I teach English at a local university.
I actually don't find that odd. There was talk a while ago, Warhammer was supposed to be the ad absurdum when it comes to like theology and fiction. And then somebody wanted to take Warhammer and turn it into like a version of it where it was all super Catholic. But taking it seriously, because obviously it was kind of like a riff on it to begin with when they took it to the absurd level. So like there's already undercurrents of theology in some people's science fiction already.
I think they go together really well, but not all science fiction communities would necessarily see theology as having a place in science fiction, and interestingly, not a lot of theology communities would see science fiction as having a place in theology.
A couple years ago, the College of Cardinals, and I don't know what you know about the Catholic Church, and I'm a neophyte when it comes to my knowledge on that, but they actually had meetings where they were trying to determine future, preparation for the future doctrine. Because we were starting to talk about exploration of space and, looking, the satellites were starting to look for aliens. And they started to determine if we found aliens, how do we determine if they are sentient and thus brothers and sisters in Christ, or they're space cows and we can eat them. And it was basically the gist of their discussion. And I can really appreciate a bunch of, old friars trying to decide, can we eat it or do we have to be nice to it?
Because there was a book that came out about 20 years ago from Marcher Lord Press about, it was more of a fantasy novel, but it was sort of that Catholic missions. Do the elves have souls? Should we be evangelizing them or not? It's that kind of thing. So it's interesting that, once again, speculative fiction leads the way and then reality follows somehow.
That's that old meme is a speculative fiction author tells you not to build the nexus of evil. And then scientists on Earth say, I wonder if I could build the nexus of evil. And then they turn it on.
Yeah.
We told you not to.
They warned us. And they warned us about AI. Sarah Connor tried to tell us. She really did. And we didn't listen. And now all of us are about to lose our jobs. But before we get too deep into the weeds, we do have to ask you the religion question. Are you ready for this, sir?
Yes, I am. I'm ready.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
This is hard to answer because the science fiction nerd in me would normally gravitate to Star Trek. However, I saw Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, when it came out in the theaters with my dad when I was a kid, and there's something about those movies that really helped fire my imagination. So I would have to say Star Wars.
There's something about the experience of going to those kinds of transformative movies with your parents that makes it also somewhat of a bonding experience. I have vivid memories of seeing Last of the Mohicans in the theaters with my stepdad. It was, something about seeing Daniel Day-Lewis running through the woods with his old, brown vest. I wanted one from him, but apparently nobody wants to give a 10-year-old a gun. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. It's what could go wrong.
Exactly. Jana, you'd give your 10-year-old a gun, right?
I started shooting when I was 8, And yes, I would take my kids out shooting by then, and they generally had guns by 12. So
There you
you're
go.
you're asking the wrong question to mountain people
But
from
the cool
Utah
thing
if you
was, at
want
least
the
Brown Desk, because it takes so much to load it, you don't have to worry about accidental issues because
that's
they're
true.
more likely to give up before they finish.
Mhm. There's a lot of steps there.
Yeah. All right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Well, I have to say Chronicles of Narnia for two reasons. One, it's the only one where I've read all of the books.
Okay.
So I've read the other two, but I've read all of the Chronicles of Narnia. But also, I'm kind of a C.S. Lewis nerd. I've been reading C.S. Lewis stuff for many years, and I tried actually about 3 years ago to make it through every single thing C.S. Lewis had written, and I got hung up. I confess I didn't make it through the Oxford Handbook of the English Literature, which C.S. Lewis himself referred to as the "Oh hell." So
Uh-huh.
I decided, maybe I just don't need to read the Oxford Handbook of English Literature in its entirety by C.S. Lewis. I read the other ones. I'm kind of a nerd about C.S. Lewis, and Chronicles of Narnia it's just that early reading experience that still stands out to me.
Which always leads to the question of, do you read it in the right order?
I do read it in the right order, and that would be a setup for me to say, what order do you read it in? Because we might think that we're each saying the right order, and we might agree and not know it.
So for me, you have to start with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because story-wise, that's where the heart of
Yes.
the story lies.
I agree with you.
And
You are
I
correct.
understand why people want it in the other chronology, but
Yeah.
I approached that when I was getting my kids to read it, and I was like, I can't start them with this because they're not going to get drawn into the story. This
Right.
informs the story, but it's not actually the heart of the story. The heart of the story starts with The Lion, the Witch, and the
Mhm.
Wardrobe, and you can see why Lewis wrote it in the order he did, and why the press has decided to reorder it. They're wrong. They're wrong.
They
Magician's
are.
Nephew is number 6.
Yes, they are wrong, and you are correct, and that is a
Yay!
sign of your genius. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, I like him. He can stay, JR. We should have him back because we are on the same. Long as we're on the same page about Narnia, everything's great.
So one of the crying shames of adulthood is we stop asking each other the important questions. So thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, we are bringing that back. And I'm going to ask you, sir, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, that's a difficult question because I loved lots of kinds of dinosaurs since my childhood, but that would have to be the Triceratops.
Okay, that's an excellent answer.
Do you
It's
want
one
to know
of
why?
mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, because in my childhood, I had a pop-up book of dinosaurs with the Triceratops fighting the T-Rex, and I thought the T-Rex was the most awesome thing around, but the Triceratops was peaceful and yet basically impaling the T-Rex. The Triceratops was impaling the T-Rex on one of his horns, and that's just, he's also got that big armor plate, so he's got basically two swords and a shield on his head, and that's more awesome than having big teeth and little tiny arms.
I have never heard it described that way, but I like it, and I'm going to steal it.
It's true.
No, we're English professionals. I will pay homage to it.
There it goes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Stand on the shoulders of giants and people who like dinosaurs.
Absolutely. Now,
Exactly.
We are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. So, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Well, what if I am a knuckle-dragging troglodyte? Can I still like coffee?
You absolutely
Is that
can.
possible? Okay, that would be my answer. Coffee. I take it black. Most of the time, I used to use a little bit of creamer, but I'm enjoying the purity of Ethiopian beans right now as I grade papers.
Okay,
Nice.
so I am actually I used to drink my coffee. I like the French vanilla flavored beans, and then I would add French vanilla creamer. And then I started tracking my calories, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm drinking a Big Mac.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I started switching to whole milk, and I realized, well, with the whole milk instead of the creamer, and then I just flavor it with the unsweetened syrups, I could actually drink twice as much coffee. So now I am, and now the savings on coffee not going bad that the Keurig offered just doesn't make any sense anymore. So I'm actually going to go backwards and put the Keurig away And on my birthday or my Christmas, I guess, I'll buy myself an actual proper coffee pot and go back to proper beans again. Because I'm drinking
That's
more.
kind of what I did too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah. Too
Keurig is
many
great.
calories and yeah.
I'm the only one drinking it. But when you're drinking one every now and then, like 8 ounces, 10 ounces, whatever, that's great. The minute you start doing more than that, and my new coffee mug that keeps it hot forever is 32 ounces. So I'm like, well, that's a pot.
Yep.
And if you drink it pot, that's still 1 cup. So if the doctor asks,
Just one really big cup.
right.
I have a little, like a Mr. Coffee kind of thing, and I have a little, kind of cheap grinder. And when I put the grinds in there, I look at the pot and I go, "This is not 5 cups. It's a little like one person thing. It's 5 cups. Like that's really one. That's 1 cup. It's 1 cup of coffee. How dare they call it a 5 cup pot?"
Absolutely. Now the thing is now is when you do your coffee, what beans or what grind do you do your beans in?
Well, I'm not enough of an aficionado to be able to say it's. I know on my grinder the setting is about 70% of the way fine, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
it does.
Whatever that is, it's not like as fine as it will be, but more than Folgers, I guess.
Yeah, I enjoy if I go like a coffee press, if I can do it the old style and let the beans actually or the grounds actually seep in there. But the French press just takes so long. And generally
Yeah.
speaking, I'm impatient. I want to just consume my coffee and not have to
Right.
wait for it to be all proper and so I kind of go
Yep.
the default as well. So Jana doesn't have these problems. She just drinks herbal tea and healthy stuff.
I drink herbal tea and I drink Diet Dr. Pepper the way that the Lord, intended.
Yes, yeah, Diet Dr. Pepper because it is very good for you. It has no sugar in it, right? It's just
Yep,
vitamin DP. Yeah.
it doesn't, just vitamin DP and lots of ice cubes. And so Utah's in the middle of a November when we're taping this anyway, heat wave, and it's suddenly 70 degrees again. And so I put my teas back to waiting until it gets a little bit cooler again, and I'm back to drinking my Diet Dr. Pepper. And then it will cool off. It's supposed to cool off hard this weekend, and we will be back into the realm where I'm drinking lots and lots of hot chocolate. Okay, no, that's backwards. Lots and lots of herbal tea because it doesn't have as much sugar in it, and the occasional hot chocolate. I really like Coffee Brown Coffee, who was a sponsor of the show. They have an excellent peppermint hot chocolate that I'm pretty sure that they must have made deals with the devil over that one because it's really, really good. So that's the
What's their best coffee?
Oh, SJR.
I like their bourbon flavored coffee, but
Okay.
I like flavored coffees, and they add it as they're roasting it and then grinding it if you get it ground. Whereas a lot of times when they add because this isn't a drop shipping operation. Like some companies that like some podcast shows, whatever, that are selling coffee. It's one like a Cisco type organization that's selling it to everybody.
Right.
Getting the means. Coffee Brand Coffee actually owns a roasting plant in the Southwest. I don't exactly know where, but they roast it themselves. I want to say it's out of Arizona, but I could be wrong. But it's definitely like he owns a roasting plant, so it's not a drop shipping operation. So they actually infuse the flavor throughout the process.
Okay.
And so I like that. I like that the flavor's better. And I'm a sucker for the bourbon flavored coffees. I have to limit as much bourbon as I put in my real coffee though, because you want to be able to drive and recovery times take longer now that I'm in my 40s. So
Oh yeah.
I try to be more grown up and mature and stuff.
Yeah. Wait till in your 50s.
Why would you want to be mature? That's awful. Don't
because
do it.
I can't afford the tickets anymore.
Okay, there's that.
And they really frown on you consuming alcoholic beverages and driving. So, there's that.
They do in Kansas too.
Although in some states you can drunk drive as long as you're driving a horse, because in theory, if because it's come up in I want to say it was North Carolina or South Carolina, the guy got drunk driving his car, so he took the tractor. They said nope, still a motor vehicle, in theory. So then he rode the horse, and this time he won because he didn't control, because the horse knew the way home. He wasn't actually driving it. He was a passenger, and he won. So,
and some horses are just smarter than some people anyway. So like,
this is also
maybe not
true.
that much of a difference.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Why do somehow we always become the food cast? We talk food and coffee and beverages. I don't know how that
because food is life.
Yeah, we're going through a little bit of a heat wave here too, Jana. It was in the 70s as well in Southern Virginia. And the guy at the gym, because she's a Dr. Pepper fan, so every time I see Dr. Pepper merch, and the people that like it, they buy the merch like it's going out of style. Coke people do the same thing. They'll buy all the swag all the way from the early 1900s. And there's this guy at my gym who wears a "Make Snake Oil Salesman's Great Again," and it's got the Dr. Pepper logo. Because you remember, if you know the history of the old Coca-Cola or old carbonated beverages, it was sold as medicine.
Yes, it was.
So,
yeah, there was a celery cola at one point, right? Yeah.
I did not know that. That does not surprise me. But I mean, if you want to go traditional, you got to put the cocaine back in Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they were putting it in celery cola, and this is a long time ago, but the government shut them down. They weren't revealing what they were putting in celery cola. So it's a brand you can find pictures online of their branding.
I'm gonna have to do some research because I've never heard of this one, and now I'm curious. And,
celery cola just doesn't sound good.
Where Jana's at, they have like a love-hate relationship with their addiction to Coca-Cola. In the South, we say Coca-Cola when we meet all carbonated beverages.
Yes, carbonated beverages.
They have a weird relationship with carbonated beverages, much like we have with our coffee. So it's almost like
we have whole shops that are dedicated to various flavored sodas, and there will be lines of people, especially in the morning, where you'd get the lines around the coffee shops. We get lines around the Swig and the Sodalicious and the various other soda places where we go and we get our mixed sodas.
I have been told that they still have soda shoppes with the extra P and the E at the end because they're
absolutely and an accent. You have a diacritical mark.
Yeah. Oops, my bad. Somehow that didn't translate in the audio portion of the podcast. All right. So with that out of the way, we've been BSing for way too long and having way too much fun. It's probably illegal in some states to have this much fun, but obviously we had you here in a little bit. We're going to talk about your books, but before you were a writer, presumably you were a consumer of the written word, of speculative fiction on the screen and the comics, etc. So how did your love of the genre develop?
Well, when I was in 5th grade, my dad was a project manager. He was an architect who worked in the field of managing big projects. So he managed the Crown Center development in Kansas City, and that's where I've always lived. But when I was in 5th grade, he was offered this job in Tulsa, producing what was then called the Williams Center. And so we moved to Tulsa for a summer, and basically he didn't want to be alone without his family. So we lived in a camper for that summer. And I'm a bookish kind of guy. I like to read anyway, but I basically was over at a friend's house and I was looking at their shelves, and they had a whole bunch of stuff by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and they just dumped it in a paper grocery bag, and they said, "Here, take this with you." So I had dozens of Edgar Rice Burroughs novels, and my favorite one that I started with was Princess of Mars. Before I knew Tarzan, I knew the Barsoom series with John Carter and Deja Thoris, and I spent my whole summer on Mars, which sounds like an impossibility, but that's where my imagination was, and from then on I was basically hooked. I read all kinds of science fiction and fantasy. I spent most of my chore money going to Walden Books or garage sales or library sales and buying all kinds, comic books, but primarily science fiction and fantasy. So it was really, even though I don't love Edgar Rice Burroughs now, he's kind of hard to read in the in this age, and at my age, he's kind of hard to read as it's not great literature, but he was a good storyteller, and I credit him with introducing me to the genre and really to that kind of speculative fiction love.
I told you, JR, he gets to stay.
Yeah, for
Somebody
me,
else who knows Walden books, so I don't feel nearly as old as I often do when we're interviewing the
Yeah.
very young on the show who go, "Wait, there was a bookstore called Borders." Yes, shut up, go away. Just and Walden and
Oh man, yeah,
bookstores of our youth that we have said goodbye to. Go for it, Jr.
yeah.
yeah, I don't think Walden's books made it to Southern Virginia. Because they were around until like 2011 when they went under completely, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
they were a
think they
great
ever
little
made it
bookshop.
here. Yeah, I don't think they ever made it here. Oh, they were in Northern Virginia because they were up in Manassas. I know that, but I'm not driving that far for a bookstore.
Yeah, right.
There's that.
So for me, like, most people are like, oh, they wanted to captain the Enterprise. For me, it was the Nautilus was my first ship I wanted to command. So some of the old stuff is where it's at. I dig it. Did you enjoy the Leagues Under the Sea?
I did. I read Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, and I basically went on a quest to find everything that was kind of in that category, and that included horror stuff. I read all the anthologies that Alfred Hitchcock came out with that were like
Nice.
tales of terror or whatever. And they had the school that I went to had these big anthologies of these short stories, and I read in the sixth grade. I read Lord of the Rings, and it like blew my mind because it was such a complete world and such immersive storytelling that then I was like, now I need to read anything that's like this. So actually started with science fiction and then found fantasy, and I probably spent more time with fantasy in my younger years. And then when I went into college, I got to study science fiction with Jim Gunn, who's a golden era science fiction writer, Hugo Award winner, and all that. And so I did my master's degree in creative writing with him, and he was very like he made me read what you could say is the classics of science fiction, just by the boatload, and I'm thankful for that. But it kind of steered. I realized in doing that what it is that I loved about science fiction. Still like fantasy a lot, but science fiction is more of my jam, you might say.
Okay. Do you go back and forth now, or are you pretty much just the sci-fi? Because it's what you're writing mostly.
It is mostly what I'm writing. I go back and forth. Because I teach literature, I'm also right now I've been immersed in doing more kind of research into Homer and Virgil, and intersection of Greco-Roman literature and New Testament stuff. So like there's an intersection of those things, which it's not really the point of the podcast, but I find there's an imaginative overlap between the Odyssey and a Princess of Mars. There actually is an overlap there. I think weirdly a lot of our storytelling, even when we don't realize it, uses a lot of not just tropes but a lot of kind of archetypal story patterns that are just really fascinating to me, because they're like, wait, this is kind of the same pattern over here in space, and I don't think the author intended it to be, but it's almost like our brains are wired to enjoy certain types of situations, and that's fascinating to me. So I like finding all those weird little rabbit holes of uh, of storytelling, whether it's in the distant past or imaginatively in the future.
Okay. So did you explore the love of science fiction and fantasy when you were a kid in your imaginary play? Like Terry Pratchett famously tells the story where his mom said he should stop reading and go outside and play with his friends. So they got on their bicycles, got some broom handles and trash can from the 55-gallon trash can lids, and they decided to joust because they were knights in shining armor. And one person gets knocked off a little too hard in the street, and suddenly mom says, "You know what? Reading's safe. Go read." Uh, and I might or might not have done stupid stuff like that. We played war and hand grenades, but we didn't have hand grenades, so rocks did. You hit one person in the head with a rock, and suddenly the moms get angry.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I had that problem. My mom would constantly tell me go outside and play, and I had this. I don't remember what age I was, but I must have been something like sixth or seventh grade when I thought, it seems like most of my friends' parents want them to read more, and I'm reading a lot, and my mom wants me to go outside and play more. It's not like I'm causing a disturbance. But I remember her saying that a lot. You need to get outside. You need to get in the sun. And so I would go over. My version of jousting is I would go over to our neighbor's house, and our neighbors had 3 boys. Um, I kind of fit in between the second and third one, and so I became part of this little tribe. And the oldest son was like a mechanical genius, and the second son was a pyromaniac. And so they would create things that I'm sure would get them arrested now. Like they made explosive devices, putting firecrackers together, taking the gunpowder out and making bigger things and blowing up stuff. It was just their hobby was, let's go blow up stuff. So I would go over to my friend's house, and I would see what it is they were building so that they could cause great destruction in the big backyard that we shared. And that was if my mom ever knew what we were doing, she would have told me to go back in and play, but she never found out. So, and she's passed away now, so it's, I can tell the story safely.
So if you're
She's not going
listening,
to care.
If our FBI handlers and all of them are listening, even though they're currently the government is shut down, please for a moment earmuffs. That sounds like a lot of fun, and I probably would have done the same thing if I had the right kind of friends. All right, now you can stop.
Yeah.
You start listening again, dear FBI.
Yeah, thank you.
Sounds...
because that was a bad idea, but it was also fun.
A lot of bad ideas are also fun.
Yes.
Yeah, what's that? All
the mother boys, I get that.
None of the best stories started with I was eating a salad, right? Like
there's no good story that starts that way. It's
right,
not possible.
You got to go out.
Okay, but now that's a challenge. Now you've just challenged. All right, dear readers, dear listeners, dear writers among you, JR wants you to come up with a great story that starts with, and there I was eating a salad.
If you send me enough of them, we will make it an anthology. I give you my word.
That would
be a great
cool.
idea.
So that's one of the things, because people I've told some of the stories about my life experiences, and I actually started writing as therapy class the VA put on for Iraq veterans. And for me, it was easier to write science fiction because in theory, space combat seemed cleaner because, there's no, lasers go through you. It just carterizes everything. That was my thinking at the time. So I started writing that. And I remember the professor that was teaching the class was like, I was like, well, I can't be an author. I haven't lived enough life yet. And she bopped me on the head. And she was like, JR, you've been to 2 war zones. What more do you want? And I started thinking, and I've had this conversation with my sons. And they're like, well, you've got all the cool stories. And I'm like, all you have to do to get your own cool stories is just put the game controllers down, put the books down, and step outside. Life is out there waiting for you. And I think our parents wanted us to chase that, but sometimes they forgot that chasing that also meant taking those risks that they maybe didn't want us to take.
Yeah.
In fact, I watched The Goonies with my kids, and they're like, where are the parents? And I'm like, it's grand, isn't it? They're not there.
That's the 80s, man.
And that was my childhood. My parents were not, I had good parents, but they shooed me out the door. They sent me on things that, it was literally, you disappear in the summer, you disappear in the morning. We would follow the creek in our backyard for miles. We would just go exploring stuff. And that as long as we were back home by sundown, what are we eating? Like if you didn't take a sandwich, you didn't eat, you either bring peanut butter and jelly, or you go hungry, or you beg, borrow. We didn't really steal, but you kind of con food out of other people when they see your kids that are hungry. But that thing was real for me.
Yeah, and your parents paid it forward when your friends came over because it kind of went around, right?
Yep.
And this is, I've explained to the kid because they finally saw that commercial. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? And like, what do you mean they don't know where their kids are? And I'm like, I know, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
We're playing night games.
A VR nurse. My mom would okay, it's not broken. Yeah, there's a little blood, but quit your whining.
Here's some duct tape. Walk it off.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep. Rub some dirt in it.
Always the dirt.
It's like we had this for you. Okay. So do you think that those experiences of your untamed feral childhood affect the way you're telling these stories now?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think so. I think there was a measure of freedom and autonomy, and that's kind of self-determination where it's not that nobody was coming to save me from things, but nobody was coming to save me. I had situations with animals, I had situations with, some of them painful, I did things that I got hurt doing, and like, well, that was stupid. Why were you doing that? What were you thinking? But it did kind of teach me, and a lot of my friends and whatever that generation was, it taught me, you'd better figure this thing called life out, because if you don't, it's going to go badly. So quit looking around and expecting someone else to fix it for you. You fix the thing. Even a mediocre fix is still a fix. So in storytelling, I think you're like, the practical side of it is, if your protagonist, the hero of your story, is not of that stripe, is going to be, he or she's going to be hard to follow. They have to be someone who takes life by the throat, basically. And I don't know that I'm naturally the most, I wouldn't call myself heroic, or even like nobody reading about my life would think I'm a great protagonist. But that aspect of you got to depend on yourself. You have to be the agent of change, is really important for any narrative. If the hero isn't pushing the story forward, it's probably gonna feel like a lousy story. And I'd never made that connection until you asked that question. That's really
I just started thinking about it more because the kids are of an age where they're starting to ask questions about life, like when we were kids, right? Where they get to a point where they start to get curious. And so I'm starting telling these stories, and I realize how radically different it is. I mean, we would just roam wild. And it's not like our parents didn't know. We didn't have cell phones. We weren't electronically leashed to them. And it's just such a different experience. I think we were in a higher trust society back then. So there was less fear. I don't know if it was safer back then, or just the lack of the 24-hour news cycle meant they weren't as obsessed with the whatever the percentage. I don't know that crime has actually gotten worse, or we just talk about it more.
I don't know either.
I haven't looked at the stats. I know murder has gone down on a progressive curve since the 60s, but I also know that's because like less people are dying because medicine's gotten better. So I don't know if the actual crime stat itself has gone down. I learned in stats class in college, you got to look at the metadata, because sometimes what they're telling you isn't the true story. And so, and I haven't looked. But it makes us wonder, like, is it really that different now, or are we just seeing the world differently?
Yeah, and that seeing the world differently does have an effect. Like, it was just Halloween. We were out of town for a funeral, but our neighborhood, when we moved in here in 1999, regularly had children coming. But it was different even in 99 than when I was a kid in terms of trick or treating. And I think this, like, the scare of, maybe part of COVID had something to do with it, but there's stories of razor blades and candy and stuff. I'm sure there's always been psychopaths who are going to do, evil stuff
Weird
like
stuff.
that. But I mean, when I was a kid, you walked around everybody's neighborhood, and everybody had bowls of terrible candy that's really awful for you, and it was awesome. I mean, you'd go around with a pillowcase, dressed up
Yep.
as a pirate or whatever, and people would just throw stuff at you, and you hoarded it for like 2 months. It's like you couldn't have. I didn't have the money to go buy this stuff, so that was like amazing. That lasted till Christmas.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, anybody who's actually seen what the stuff goes for, like the idea of they're just giving it to you for free, like, really? Like, in what dystopia, like, in what crazy world are they giving that stuff away? Come on.
Right. No, there's got to be something off about it, Yeah, I mean, and I understand why people don't do it now. I mean, I think I understand that, but is the world, I like the question, is the world really that much more dangerous, or is it just our perceptions have made us more scared of keeping our children from taking any risks? I don't know. That's not my area, but it does seem like if in a culture that's not very risk averse in many ways, where we don't seem to want to take small risks, but we'll take sometimes big stupid ones, but not little small ones. That, like, you need to learn to be able to take and manage risks in life.
But see, that's what they don't realize is the little risk teach you to make better, more informed decisions about about weighing the proper risk stuff. The stuff. Like, you don't start off, unless you're David Goggins and he's crazy, you don't start off waking up one day and say, you know what, I haven't got off the couch in 3 years, but I'm just going to run a marathon. No, you start by walking around the block.
Right. Yeah.
And so most people, normal people, he's wired a little different. So like I get that, and I wonder how that has changed society. I've seen, you know, the study of urban living, how like the constant encroaching of larger and larger heavy main thoroughfares have shrunk the circle of where kids can roam in suburbia. And I wonder how that has to do with it, because, you know, if there's not many major roads, you can roam farther, right? And that gives
that's
you
a good point.
Those experiences. Or if you're in the country, it's more of a thing. Because those give you the experiences that, you know, some of these classics that we were talking about, bringing it back to the writing, that inform their decisions because they had those experiences, right? Like, but if you grew up in the burbs and you never left, and your most exciting was going to the playground, I mean, you had to work for it, to get those same experiences.
Yeah, and now I'm not sure that a lot of young people are even getting the vicarious experience of reading the stories where you're going, whether it's Last of the Mohicans or Huckleberry Finn or something, where you're getting those frontier freedom of autonomous choices and risk taking. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I wish we'd have more of that, but
that might be something, if I could figure out a way to make it entirely targeted to our audience of consumer of content and not creators of content, that might be something that we brainstorm, Jana, and come back to, because that could be interesting to see how our childhood experiences affect the literature we like to read.
I'm game.
I think there's something there. I'm not quite sure, but I think there's something there. Like, I just got to find the angle that isn't entirely focused on the author side. Speaking of author side, this is the worst segue ever, but we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to come back and talk about the books that brought us here.
The Terran Empire is dead. Long live the Empire. Commander Jared Mertz, the bastard son of the Emperor, and his half-sister, Princess Kelsey, barely speak to one another. To their dismay, their father seizes an opportunity to change that and sends them on a dangerous quest to explore the fallen empire. Separated from home by an impassable gulf and struggling to redefine their relationship, they find themselves thrust into a vicious war. Unless they work together to stop the Empire's deadly legacy, billions face a horrific fate. Empire of Bones, written by Terry Mixon, now available at Amazon.com.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. We appreciate your patience. And now that we got that out of the way, we are here to talk about the Maxine Justice series. It's a duology at the moment. Are more coming, or is it ending as a duology?
Well, my plan is to write more Maxine Justice books, as long as she is willing to rearrange the furniture in my imagination and keep me on my toes. So started out as one book with an idea for 5 more, and the publisher was really happy with the first one, so they said, please write another one. And I did that. I had to write a dissertation in between books 1 and 2. And I'm working on.
That explains the gap.
That is the gap. Yes, I went back to school and had a lot of research and stuff to do, a lot of writing to do. So that's why it was delayed. Was the dissertation at least something interesting? Well, I think so. It actually was published earlier this year from Baker Books. I mean, I don't know if people would find this interesting. It's called The God of Story. It's basically examining narrative patterns that are often ignored in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. It's like there's these patterns that are there that often get overlooked because people want to argue about doctrines. But that the God of Story says the same sorts of narrative things that are going on in the Odyssey and in the Aeneid or whatever are actually happening in the narrative aspects of the Bible. So it's one of those things that probably changed my perception of how stories work in some ways by doing all the study of that. But I'm as soon as I was done with that, I wrote Maxine Justice Public Offender, which came out, well, as we're recording this, today would be the release day, and I'm planning on doing at least one more.
Okay. So first off, because we've all got kids amongst us, what would you say the rating of these books would be for people that are wondering if they're appropriate for their own youngins?
Well, there's nothing inappropriate about them in terms of the content. So like they would be, as a rating, I would say they're probably like a PG rating. However, the target audience isn't really, they're not like mid-grade or young adult. They are marketed towards adults. And one of the reasons for that is because not only is the story somewhat complex and relying on, they're legal thrillers in space. I pitched the first one as if Terry Pratchett wrote a novel based on a book by John Grisham, while C.S. Lewis made snarky comments over his shoulder after having had one too many sherries. That's the way I pitched the book. It's a meant to be lighthearted, but it is a kind of legal thriller in space. And so I'm not sure that 13, 14-year-olds are going to care about the legal and lifestyle problems of a young female attorney in this metropolis who is punching up because the legal system's trying to destroy her. I'm not sure that's a perfect fit for them. So it's more of an adult aimed book.
Yeah, one of those. It's not necessarily adult content, but it's about things that adults do. I have to explain this to my kid because she's a super reader. And when she was last tested, she's all of 12, and they tested her and they said, well, she reads on a college level as far as she can read the words, she understands what they mean, all of the context and that kind of stuff. But there's so many things that because she is 12, she either A, has no interest in, like taxes and politics and things like that, or B, just doesn't have the life experience to where she can read it. That doesn't mean she knows what's going on. And so I think that's a good thing to look at, is to say content-wise, probably anywhere there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be interesting to a 12-year-old kid, even if she could read it.
Yeah, and the first book is really about a down on her luck ambulance chasing lawyer who failed the bar exam 3 times, who is hired by extraterrestrials to represent them at the United Nations, and it's kind of her big moment to make a name for herself. But what she starts to realize is that there's a subtle trick going on that means she's helping the enemy in a sense. So it's you could say it's an alien invasion story, but they're not really invading. They're just doing a kind of corporate takeover of Earth. That's the idea.
Nice.
So do kids get that? I mean, some would understand the concept, but do they get the nitty-gritty of the internal dynamics that are going on with her? Yeah, probably not.
So then what can you tell us about her specifically as a character?
Well, she's not like me at all. She is she is got a temper. She is snarky. She's willing to like she believes that the point of studying the law is knowing how to get around it. And she's very clever. And one of the things she does well is she has the personality to convince people that trust her against their better instincts. So she's good at conniving. But in a sense, she's generally trying to also help the little guy. So it's kind of the story arc is really her realizing that she's more of a defense attorney at heart than she is a kind of insurance or slip and fall kind of attorney. And she's not she can do the ambulance chasing thing, but what she's really all of her talents point to something else. And so I really found her this book kind of came to me at a really dark time in my life, and I needed to write something light, and I wrote it with such glee and delight. I could not believe the things that this character was saying in my mind because they just made me laugh. I was like having so fun telling the story, and at the same time I don't know where Maxine came from. I can't point to anything and say, oh, this is my, Aunt June, if she were, 28 years old and a lawyer in New York or something. It wasn't that. It was, I don't know where she came from. Maybe she's some kind of archetypal embodiment of certain aspects of my personality or something. I don't know what a shrink would do with that, but yeah, she's to me, she was just a fun break from things. And I discovered in writing her story that there's actually a real human kind of buried beneath all of the, lawyer jokes or whatever. She interacts with one of the things that's going on in this world is that there's android characters who are indistinguishable from humans, but yet they are, they're artificial humans. So it's not artificial intelligence. It is, but it's guys in android bodies, and they are generally lawyers or judges or counselors or surgical bots. So one of the sidekicks in this is a pasteroid. So he's an evangelical pastor android, and his job is
Nice.
to provide counseling services to people who have trouble resisting the urge to bash thy neighbor.
Nice. So is it a spoiler to ask you, are they Star Trek kind of aliens where everything is kind of human adjacent, or are they Star Wars kind of aliens where you can get just about anything under the sun? Is that too spoilery to ask?
I know it's not spoilery to ask at all, because actually one of the things you see early on in the story, when she is first hired by this, she doesn't believe they're extraterrestrials. She believes that they are lunatics because the way they walk, the way Dr. Erene presents himself to her in her office is of a kook who claims to be an extraterrestrial, and he says he's wearing an Earth suit. So he's his real form is concealed inside this apparently human body, but all of his movements look a little weird. And of course, he never says quite the right things because he's trying to, she figures out at some point. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but wait, what if he's not crazy? What if he's really this thing? So I don't actually tell you what they look like. I tell you what they look like on the outside, but is there some other form? He's compared to a shark a lot, but that's probably because he's a lawyer.
Nice. So it's like the Thermians on Galaxy Quest. They look human, but that there's something not quite right there.
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate the subtle Galaxy Quest reference that we just slide right in there.
Anytime that there's an opportunity to reference Galaxy Quest, I'm totally going to do it because it was an awesome movie.
So you mentioned that this wasn't, this was a creation that you came up with that kind of surprised you. It isn't a self-insert. There are some theories of literature where the author creates and their creation outlives their intent and it becomes something else. So the writer could say, I meant this, but if the literary community decides you were saying something more profound, that's what it really means, because your opinion as the author doesn't matter. Then do you buy into that theory?
Well, I don't know if I would ever say the opinion of the author doesn't matter, but I think once it becomes published, it no longer becomes wholly yours, because I'm actually someone who's like, I would say neither like theory that if you go with the idea that the reader is creating an entirely new thing in their imagination, I don't believe that. I believe that they're working with the material that the author is providing, but the author is never ever going to recreate the thing in the reader's mind that he has in his mind. It's not possible, right? So it's really this joint effort between creator and consumer. It's a joint effort, and like Middle Earth looks different to everybody when you read the Lord of the Rings. It's always going to look a little bit different. Now, when you watch the movies, we're all seeing, Elijah Wood as Frodo or whatever.
Right.
So, but I think once it's produced as a book and it's out there and it's published, I don't have control over it anymore. And I can't, I have, the only control I have is the words that I already created, my attempt to do something. And what every reader brings to it, their own experience, is going to shape the kind of world and the character that she is to them. So it's no longer mine. Now that, obviously the character is mine, and I can take her on future journeys that may not be what people expect or want, and hopefully they are pleased with the way things go with her character arc, however it goes. But yeah, I'm not in control of it, so and I don't. It's going to sound weird because I know I wrote it, but I didn't feel entirely in control at all, which was part of the fun of the story for me. I was never quite sure what Maxine was going to do next, even though I had something of an outline. I did not follow the
Nice.
outline. By the time I got to a third of the way through, I was hitting certain aspects of it, but it got to the end, and I'm like, she's a different person than I was picturing, and she feels way more real to me than I would have imagined.
Okay.
Sweet.
I
I love the covers. No, go JR. You're good.
I was going to say, because we back to the question of when we were talking about what the author's intent. There's a famous one with, was it All the King's Horses that Kurt Vonnegut wrote, and the teacher was like, "Oh, this is a metaphor for the Cold War," and so the kid wrote as part of his paper. He wrote Kurt Vonnegut, and I guess in his last year of life, he was responding to every high school kid that was writing him letters because he didn't have anything else to do, so he just responded to all these letters. He's like, "Nope, your teacher's wrong. I didn't mean that." And so I know, or the blue curtain was just because blue was his favorite color. It had no other existential meaning. I was wondering, because you mentioned that with Maxine, you didn't. She wasn't like a self-insert, so you weren't sure where the idea came from. It just got me thinking, because with your academic background in literature, what your take on that would be.
Yeah, well, she wasn't. I don't think she was a self-insert, but of course she's going to have aspects of at least part of what I think is true, at least about like the legal world, the way insurance works, the way the medical field is a blessing and a curse. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on anything and anybody in particular in this book, but I do think there are things that are worthy of lampooning, especially when we get to the extremes and people are suffering because of excesses in the legal system or excesses in the medical and insurance industries. Those things are worth pointing at and making fun of, right? And so she was a great vehicle for that for me, from things that I've experienced personally. I definitely put a lot of personal experience in this, but personality wise, I don't think I would get along with her very well at all. She does stuff that would just irritate the snot out of me. I mean, I would be like, this is unscrupulous. Maxine, what are you doing? Right?
Since
Like,
she is
it's not really a lie who you're lying to. It's not really a lie, but that's her, right? And so, yeah, I don't think that's me. I don't think I could be her. The good and the bad parts of her, I can't be.
So I am not a lawyer, but I did grow up watching Johnny Cochran, and at one point in time, I wanted to be a lawyer just so I could argue with him. He passed away before I even finished my undergrad, so that was never going to happen. But I have watched some Law and Order and the BBC version. So when you wrote this legal character with the legal practices intergalactically speaking, did you rely on the American jurisprudence for the pastiche that you put on this? Did you lean into some of the British stuff where it could be fun and make them wear wigs, just because it's cool?
No, it's more American in conception. So it's actually not taking place in a future. It's taking place in an alternate Earth that is slightly in the future. So it's not York, it's just York City, and it's the American Republic. There are differences. I actually refer to that early in the story. I try to set it up with a kind of a science fiction explanation of the multiverse, which is kind of like the multiverse, but it's things could always be worse somewhere, and so somewhere they are. So that's the idea of the multiverse. So this is one of those multiverses, one of these other Earths out there in the multiverse, if it exists. I relied on. I spent 11 years working for an insurance company doing claims when I was a young man, and so they trained me in insurance contracts. And so I leaned a lot into that, having to negotiate and deal with lawyers and go to trials and stuff. I relied on that experience, and part of it is my it's not like I'm claimed to be an expert in the law or in insurance law, but I have a fairly extensive, something like 3,000 of these cases. So I have that background there, and there's a lot there that I pull from. I have a lot of really weird memories in my mind from things that actually happened that is just fodder for Maxine in not only this book, but future books. Weird things that have happened in trial and weird things people have said to me and things that have happened that like, well, I had no idea that was part of our legal system, but it sure is. So what could you do in an alternate universe? And I'm one of my strategies as a writer is if I know I can't be an expert in everything about this world, science fiction is a great place to make it a slightly different world where we have slightly different rules that apply here. And for instance, having, trial bots, magistron trial bots who are using their AI wisdom to dispense justice at the very lower court level.
That sounds very dystopian to me.
It should feel a little dystopian in a kind of humorous way.
So with this multiverse, is this kind of leaning on some of the Lovecraftian stuff? Because I'm getting Lovecraft vibes, the Elder Gods and such.
Not really. So the multiverse, I don't suggest it necessarily exists in the book. It's the theory of the asteroid theropod counseling guy. He won an award for coming up with multiverse theory. He also came up with something that didn't result in an award called the semiverse, which is that essentially there are not an infinite number of universes because there have to be certain things in common, such as the strong nuclear force, gravity, and boy bands. And wherever you get life, you're going to have bands. So that's the idea of the semiverse. Is it's not exactly the multiverse. It's a take on it where you have a limited number of only hundreds of trillions of things, not an infinite number of them.
And everywhere young girls scream in joy at the boy bands.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Jana, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hijack the thread you were going to take.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from. No, I was just saying I'm digging the covers. Did you have input on that, or is that all your publisher? Or because it's really well balanced as far as the color palettes and she's sexy and not all at the same time. She's definitely got I'm a lawyer and I will take you to court going on,
Yeah.
but they ask the right questions when you see her. You see the hints of things in the background. So how involved were you in your cover creation?
Well, I don't really have I don't have anything to do with the covers in one sense, and that is so the publisher Enclave hired Kirk DuPont. So I love Kirk DuPont's work. He's a fabulous cover artist. They do like some publishing companies will have you as the author come up with ideas, things that are central themes, whatever you're thinking about that just gives a vibe. Kirk DuPont's actually read the first book before he did the cover. So he liked the book, and he actually did a really good job on both of these covers, I believe. But I have the great gift of being able to say, here's what I see for it. It never comes out the way I see it. It's always better. So the great thing about it is because I'm not an artist, I don't want Kirk doing what I see in my head. I want him doing these covers that he actually does. But I do get to say, here's the vibe, and here's some elements that might work. And he ends up, always giving it his own twist that looks better than I would have come up with. So I get a little bit of a say in throwing ideas at him, but I don't really have anything to do with the covers other than that.
All right. So since we're talking about the way she looks right now, it's just a weird segue, but so a lot of times when people talk about their books getting made into movies, they focus on, well, which actor or actress would look exactly like my character. I always thought that the vibe of the person mattered more than the exact look, because that is quintessentially the character than the skin suit they're in. So do you have a preference? If you were looking for someone to portray this on the big screen, would you want more to look exactly like the cover or what you picture in your head, or to have more of the personality that you envision?
Yeah, totally the personality. They would not have to look like this, although this is fairly accurate to the way I describe Maxine in the book. I think the vibe would be much more important. And I couldn't even think of a name of anybody right now. Maybe there's a British actress in in a I think it's an Acorn production called Karen Peary. I think she's kind of got the vibe of Maxine Justice, but not exactly. She doesn't. She doesn't really look like her, but she has that a little bit of what Maxine has. So I would say definitely it has to be the personality. It's the thing that sold me on her, and I think I would like the character if she looked different. I think I would still want that aggressive, kind of good-hearted, but also shystery like thing that Maxine has. Yeah,
She's a son of
The
a
I would hire
bitch.
attitude.
Maxine.
She's a son of
If
a
I ever
bitch,
had
but she's
needed
your
a
son of
lawyer,
a
I'd
bitch.
want her. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, JR.
I said, when it comes to lawyers, you want them to be a son of a bitch, but you want them to be your son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quoting
That's
my
why I
grandpa.
would hire her. Yep.
Jana, do you have a preference? I go for the vibe too, but do you have a preference? Would you prefer something with your characters more the look or more the vibe?
I think it's mostly vibe. I think that sometimes they can get so far afield, especially if the look matters, that it can get a little bit weird. Like if you describe somebody as a redheaded with an Irish background, and then you make
Yeah.
them very, very different from that, that can throw it off a lot, especially when there's also a cultural thing in there. But I think otherwise, if you've got the right vibe and hey, you've got a blonde instead of a brunette, unless there's a cultural reason that connects with the rest of the story, connects with their personality, it's probably going to be just fine.
Okay, so we talked about Maxine as the main character and a little bit about her sassiness. Were there any secondary characters that you especially enjoyed in these two books?
Well, the first book, Counselor Singh, becomes kind of her mentor character, one who points her towards, I don't know if sanity is the right word, but actually a more like realistic view of what reality is and who she could be and probably should be. Actually helps her deal with her past. The second book, there's another character who's he's a Catholic counseling priest, so he's a padre, and he was interesting to me because I was not expecting him either as a character, and he's very different than the Counselor Singh, the Pastoroid character. These android characters to me have become central to the world that this is kind of explained a little bit in Public Offender, the second book, which is essentially the trial that she can't win with that she doesn't want, and that client is the Padre, Father Bart, who is almost certainly guilty of murdering one of the trial judges, the android new magistron trial bot, just found murdered with, he's there in her chambers with the murder weapon and the fluid on his hands, right? So he's almost
Oops.
certainly guilty, and she happens to be the night court public defender for that night, so that is thrown at her initially. She doesn't want that because there's no money in it. There's not only no money, but he's guilty. What's this going to do for her? It's not going to help her career at all. So these characters are becoming, to me, more central to the world because it's dystopian, because it's comedic, and because I like exploring what if through science fiction that go beyond just, hey, what would space trials be like? That's not as interesting to me as, what does it mean to be human? What's the difference between an android and a real human? So artificial humans and real humans, do they have equal rights? Other people have asked these questions. I just think the law and the law really kind of being having a juxtaposition with, let's say, religious questions, that instead of shoving aside the religious questions and saying how do they overlap and how do they impact each other, I think science fiction, legal thrillers is a great place to ask those questions. I don't even know if I answered your question with that, but that is what Public Offender is.
Yeah, I think so. So do you enjoy the transhumanist angle where, through proxy, you examine what it means to be human? It sounds like what
Yeah,
you're
I mean, yeah, but it's more, it's more exploring what it means to be human through the human being both helped and hindered greatly by the existence of this transhuman factor. So there's, I usually, to explore something, I think you have to honestly look at both sides of it. And as honestly as possible, say what is the good here, what is the potential good, and also what is the potential harm. And if I can see things in more complexity than the readers, which is really my job as a writer, to think several steps beyond where the reader would naturally go. If I can do that, then I'm probably going to at least create food for thought. And so these books do make me think. In writing them, I have to provoke myself to dig under rocks that I would not normally dig under, and then consider things from angles that are not always being considered.
So would you want to live in Maxine's world? Jump down in there and be a professor?
No, I would not. I think it is a little more dystopian. It's part, it's the multiverse is real. I have stickers that say I believe in the multiverse. I don't have them anymore. I gave them out as a marketing thing when the first book came out. I believe in the multiverse stickers. But yeah, I think that the implication is this is a worse place to live because of all this.
Okay. So do we actually get to see in this series off planet, or does it all take place on alternate Earths?
Well, the book there is a significant, it would be spoilers to explain how, but her story trajectory takes her to a galactic court. So she ends up, in a sense, having to be a defense attorney finally for all of planet Earth, which is exactly what we need. Representing us is an ambulance chasing 20-something-year-old lawyer who failed the bar exam 3 times, telling the galactic powers where to shove it. Right. So it does, but I don't want to. If I would give away spoilers, if I would say what that's like, because it's probably not what you expect. But it is off. It is off world. Yeah.
Okay. Jana, do you have any more questions? Because I don't want to go into spoiler territories, because we obviously encourage people to read the books themselves. Did you have any questions for him that we didn't ask yet?
None that I can ask because of the whole spoilery thing. I know that I'm over here going, okay, I might just have to download these, because as I'm reading the descriptions, there are things I wish to know, but if I ask them, then it'll be spoiler territory. So, dear listener, if you have questions, you can ask, and we'll see if Daniel will come and answer them, in the comments and stuff.
Let's talk real quick about formats. Right now, obviously, you can get the print and the ebook. Is this available in audio?
It is, yes. Both books are available in audio. They are both read by the same incredibly talented Amy Lilly with Oasis. Family Media did the voice on this. Fantastic choice. Honestly, she is actually the voice of Maxine in my head. When I write, I hear Amy Lilly's voice. I seriously, and I like a lot of audiobook writers do a great job. But somehow Amy Lilly just nailed Maxine Justice. She's really good at audiobook narrator. So I'm not just saying that because it's my books. I'm saying props to Amy Lilly. She's Maxine in my head now.
Okay. All right. Well, then, if listeners and viewers wait, this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part, people, and leave a review. It really does matter. There's Goodreads. You can leave them on Amazon. You can start a website and leave them there. You can take out a plane with a little tail behind it where you can write the message there. Whatever you got to do, smoke signals, we don't care. Just tell a friend, right? Leave a review. It matters. And with that out of the way, how might listeners and viewers find you on the wild, wild interwebs? And as usual, links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, well, my website, danschwabauer.com. My name isn't that easy to spell. Hearing it, it's SCHWABAUER DanSchwabauer.com is a great place to find me. I'm also occasionally on Facebook. I'm on Instagram a bit more, and I'm also on Goodreads.
All right. And eventually, Jana, we will add you to our link tree. I'll do that over the Christmas break. It'll happen eventually, but it won't be today. So with that out of the way, if they wanted to stalk you on the wild interwebs, where might they find you, Jana?
Now, I'm holding out for season 6. Maybe in season 6, then I get my own links. But until then, you can find me at linktree, linktr.ee/Opal Kingdom Press, or you can go straight to the source to opalkingdompress.com, where myself and my multiple personalities hang out. Rumor has it eventually I'm going to put together a Discord server for the press. We'll see when I get that done. And otherwise, you can find me under these pen names and others that we're not going to talk about. All over the internet, I am the loser of hide and go seek on the interwebs. So Janice Brown or Jenna Ray, they're almost always me on all of the different places.
All right. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things. We link to all the things. What's that?
I was just going to take your line from you, but you're managing. Go ahead. The bit shoots the rumbles.
The BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters, the Spotify, the Discord, the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We've got our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink those coffee brand coffee products until the coffee turns their hair brown, and we all float away on a river of caffeinated goodness, except for Jana. Hers will be hot chocolate, but, it's still got caffeine in it, so we'll call it a good. If you want some of that, if you want some of that coffee brand coffee products, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, thanks for coming on, Dan. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, with that, we'll hit the end button. Don't cuss yet, Jana. Wait.